Welcome to Dorks on Sports, a podcast about four dorks talking about sports. Joining me, as always, my name is Daniel. We got Curtis. Curtis, I have to ask you a question. What does Curtis Eastwood do in the off season after the Super Bowl and before training camp starts?
Well, in a couple weeks' time, we're going to have the NFL scouting combine.
Okay, so you're going to dig in deep on that.
In Indianapolis, and that's a whole week-long event. We get all the measurements. We get all the 40 times. We get all the 10-yard splits. We get all the bench presses. I'm going to be glued to my television. It's like the underwear Olympics for big men.
We got all these coaches looking at all these young men like draft horses.
There's going to be all these defensive tackles that I'm going to get super excited about that Seattle's not going to draft because they're going to draft a wide receiver instead. And like, it's just, and then there's free agency after that, And
you know what I like about the combine?
What's that?
In recent years is teams and coaches now, they're really deceptive about who they're looking at combines now.
Yes, they are.
Like they don't want to play their hand. So now you've got like this political Game of Thrones thing going on at the combine now. I kind of dig it. Yeah. I like the drama.
Yeah, it's a lot of poker face stuff.
Yeah. I like it. All right. Anyway, good. So in the, after all that, and then we're in the dead of summer before training camp starts and everything. What do you do?
What do I do?
Do you just do you return to your coffin and go into a torpor for 3 months until training camp starts?
I don't know that there are too many sports podcasts that use the word torpor on them.
And then you rise from the coffin.
Before the pandemic, I used to do all the summer blockbuster stuff. Like that was my whole thing. Like, it was just like all the big, spectacle films to come out. But
the thing is, Marvel has that's like a year-round thing now.
It is.
Yeah, I know.
Well, they're destroying cinema. And
right,
the world
as all those
it's a lot of
old
fun. I'm enjoying it
us.
Personally, but
yeah. Alana, how are you doing over there?
I am doing all right. It's a busy
what's
week.
your opinion on the Winter Olympics? How's that been going for you?
The sport that has my heart is short track speed skating. I love watching short track speed skating, but this year the real money has been in snowboard cross. Those races have been exceptional, and you'll know
the stories. They've been great.
The stories, yeah. Lindsay Jacob Ellis, getting silver in 2006. She's right there on Millie's background. The reason she got silver was because she showboated off the last jump and then beefed it, and then slid in for silver instead of gold. And then she competed in 2010, in 2014, in 2018, and in 2022. And she didn't win a medal in any intervening moment. And in this Olympics, she's won 2 golds.
So cool.
And it was such a cool story. Her glee when she won her solo race was just unbridled joy. And then watching the mixed doubles, which is mixed relay, I guess, which is a new event. I was sitting on my couch screaming, "Go Nick! Go Nick!" And then I roped in my whole family into it, and we were all just cheering at the top of our lungs. It was just super awesome. And the other sports have been good as well. I feel really happy for how it's gone. With some exceptions.
We'll get to that. Yeah,
we'll get to that. Aaron Jackson winning in speed skating, the 500 meter long, not short track. I think she's the first Black athlete to win a speed skating gold for the Americans, and that was pretty cool as well. There's a lot of that type of thing.
I love it. Well, we're gonna get to the Winter Olympics in a little more depths for you podcast listeners. So stay tuned. Keep listening. If you're Olympics only and you don't listen to the Super Bowl, just skip ahead by about probably 20 minutes. Millie, are you doing over there?
We
so
don't
sorry. My
provide
condolences.
timestamps.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's true. We're a
Your
high-level
Bengals
operation.
did not get it done. It was a great game. It came down to the final play, but unfortunately, the Rams were the one who walked away with it. How are you doing over there?
Oh, I'm doing all right. It was that I've had some time. It was a really good game.
Mm-hmm.
It really was. I mean, it was tight. It was action. It flew by. I don't remember the last time I felt like a Super Bowl went by quickly and in such an exciting manner. And
fairly low scoring for a Super Bowl, but I didn't feel like it was poorly played.
Was it low scoring for a Super Bowl though? Was it?
A little bit on this. I mean, I think the officials were letting the defenders defend.
The defenders get a little physical until
minutes of the game.
Sure, but I'm just saying. I mean, the last time the Rams played in the Super Bowl, they scored 3 points. So
that's
a good point. That's what
I was actually doing at the beginning of this was reviewing some of our forecasting from our last podcast.
That game did not go how I thought it was going to at all.
No, it did not. You all did horribly. I did fantastic, but you all did horribly. But I didn't think it was actually all that low scoring for a Super Bowl. I don't recall them being extremely high scoring affairs in general. They tend to be more of a defensive face-off until more recent years. Because now we just love quarterbacks so much. And we give people 12 chances to throw a touchdown. It's fine. We're not going to get upset about that.
I'm over it.
We're fine. We're all fine about it. You should read Curtis's blog and we just won't talk about it. Because we have to get over it. But it was a really good Super Bowl. I didn't love the ending. I didn't love how it ended. Obviously, we all wanted the Bengals to win. We all chose the
Aaron
Bengals.
Donald loved how it ended.
Oh, he sure did.
Oh.
If I have to look at that man one more time. Now watching him cry got to my heart, but watching him be a dick and finger did not.
I think he's genuinely one of the good dudes in the league. I have a hard time like totally hating him, and that's hard for me to say given the fact that he destroys my quarterback annually. But like, I think he's genuinely one of the better guys.
He's
an amazing player, and here's the thing: the more that you get all the hype before the game, and the reality is the Rams had a lot of players that are easy to love. We might hate that team and a lot of things about it, but honestly, like, I was happy to see OBJ play. I was sad to see his knee go the way it did.
That sucked.
And I was, and there he is crying at the end. And yeah, he had some time as a prima donna, but he also had a lot of years just trying to make something happen. So I'm happy for him. Whitworth and Weddle, right? Weddle comes back out of retirement and he tears his pectoral and he's like, I'm going back into retirement, but this sure was fun. And Cooper Kupp, who, a few people really, really saw how great he was going to be. But before this season started, he was not supposed to be the guy. And he was totally the guy. And he was absolutely the MVP of the league, which is another thing we're not going to talk about.
Yeah. Cooper Kupp had one of the all-time great seasons for a wide receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, he
came out of Eastern Washington. That's the thing that we all forget. Like, he's not an LSU factory wide receiver. He came out of Division 2 or Division 1A or whatever they call it.
And he was a late bloomer too. I was listening to one of the sports radio stations last week and they had his high school coach, and when he came in to take over that high school in Yakima, everyone was talking about how this kid was just a great kid and you're going to love him. And he took one look at him and he was like 6 foot, 140 pounds or something like that. Like, he was just rail thin, and he was just me in high school. Okay. Yeah. But he was just a very determined, he was just a football junkie. He used to walk around in the high school halls with like, ankle weights on to sort of like improve his verticals
burst
and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. He sounds like he's a really cool guy. I hadn't really followed him super closely, but I know a few years ago when he was in Eastern Washington and he was coming out in the draft, I was kind of really pining for the Seahawks to draft him because I thought it would have been a really cool local story.
Yeah.
but I had no idea that he was going to project in that way. And watching him, you know what who he really reminds me of, and I've never heard him comp this way. He reminds me of Jerry Rice in the way that he can move after the catch, and he can just sort of find ways to get open. And that, I mean, just the way he catches those slant passes and goes and like, you know, and sidesteps, like I just think his route awareness, his ability to run after the catch is pretty spectacular to watch.
I am seeing that comparison actually pick up quite a bit, especially because of what he managed to accomplish in the season.
With the Triple Crown,
with the Triple Crown.
Yeah. So
and he wasn't a fast guy. He wasn't a, you know, Jerry Rice wasn't a, he was thought as a slow receiver coming out of college, you know, good pass catcher, good route runner, but not any top end speed. And that was the knock on Cup, was like, you know, oh, he doesn't have elite speed. Well, he looks
so, you know,
the
Rams went out and got Matthew Stafford, thinking that was the piece that was going to put him over the top. And I think they probably gambled well on that. But who's more important to that team? If the Rams don't have one of these players, which one is more important to that team for this season winning that Super Bowl? Matthew Stafford or Cooper Kupp?
I don't think you could make an argument. The upgrade at quarterback that they went through is why they won the Super Bowl, in my mind.
Sure.
I do think that we saw this season from Cooper Kupp coming based on last season. He was one of the top receivers in the NFL last season. So the 10 to 15% increase in production from Kupp last season to this season is a nice thing for sure.
Yeah.
Becoming the premier wide receiver. Maybe we didn't expect that, but we probably thought he was top 5. Jumping from number
Jared
20,
Goff.
number 20 to 25 quarterback to 6, 7, 8 quarterback. The difference there is substantial. And I think that Kupp was the MVP of the season. I think that Kupp was the MVP
clearly of the Super Bowl.
But I don't think the Rams win the Super Bowl without making that Stafford trade.
Sure, but if Stafford doesn't have Kupp, do they win that Super Bowl?
But there is a touchdown that Kupp caught that Stafford didn't throw.
That's true. I'm just saying, like, yeah, you're right. If Kupp isn't on that team, the Rams don't even make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
it's really a hard thing to separate for them.
It is.
And their bond,
that connection.
Right.
I do have to say the connection that those two made immediately was surprising. And not only that, and I'll give props to Matthew Stafford for this. He was also able to develop that chemistry with OBJ halfway through the season. That's pretty incredible.
So here's an interesting thing I do want to tell you, though, is before the season started, in the off season, Cooper Kupp was amazing last year. But as somebody who works on the fantasy side, everyone was downgrading Kupp. They actually said he wasn't going to have a season. He was going to have a drop off, and that the connection between Stafford and Woods was the thing. That was going to be the big deal. That was going to be his guy. Kupp, we'll see what happens. And then they started playing, and that was absolutely not what happened. And it was
that's because Woods went out in preseason.
It was mid-season, right?
Was it mid-season? I thought it was
mid-season.
It was mid-season.
He went out weirdly the same week they signed OBJ. And then they lost Woods, and it was kind of like, oh, that's the reason why.
Yeah, we were like, oh, OBJ, whatever.
Got it. Yeah. Sorry.
So it was an interesting thing because he did kind of fly under the radar for a lot of people. And there was an interview with one of their regular reporters for the Rams, and she had been at all the practices and she had talked to the coaches. So it wasn't one of these weird misdirection things from the coach or, you know, the organization. Like truly in preseason, that's what they were showing. That was the connection. And then the game started and it totally switched. And all credit does go to them too, though, because they talk about the fact that they would spend 5 hours just doing drills with each other. I mean, they made that work, and it is very impressive. And like I said, there are a lot of stories and people within that organization that make it so I don't feel disgusting and dirty about who won this Super Bowl.
Except for the piece of shit.
It wasn't Green Bay. You know, it wasn't Green Bay. It wasn't Tom Brady again. Like I was happy for them last year, but I don't want to see it twice.
Yeah,
it could be worse. And you know, that Bengals team, I love them, but they're young, and hopefully they can keep their shit together.
Does this Bengals team are they going back to the Super Bowl?
Not next year.
They won't next year.
I don't think they make the playoffs next year. I think they're gonna get hit pretty hard by the
that Super Bowl curse.
And I think
I don't think either team's going back next year.
Yeah,
I
think
agree.
I agree
Hard
with that,
to. I think the Bills are going to be really hard to beat next season. I think
that's my way too early prediction as well. I think it's the Bills.
We're in agreement on that.
You know, I really feel like the AFC is trending at a much more rapid pace than the NFC in terms of like young, potential prolific quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I can see a decade on this short horizon where we're going to see AFC domination. Potentially.
They've got so many great young quarterbacks. The NFC has two of the best veterans in the league right now in Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. It's scary to think that Russ is now like the grizzled vet of the NFL, but here we are. Yeah. It's
Can we talk? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Can we talk about the halftime show?
We have to talk about the halftime show. First of all, I mean, absolutely lit. It was incredible. Here's one thing I just want to point out that I just noticed immediately was that stage chemistry that Dre and Snoop still have is just incredible. Just absolutely incredible. The two of them are so magnetic together. Also, I want to say, like, I started to feel my age because I was watching and I was like, wow, this is finally like a really cool halftime show. And I was like, oh, well, now because I think it's a cool halftime show, it was clearly catered toward me, and the NFL will only cater a halftime show toward old people. So here we are.
I didn't even make that connection that this was old music until I started seeing memes pop up on like Twitter and Facebook about like, you know, people over 50. I hate this music. People under 30. Who are these people?
Who are these people?
For Kendrick is modernly relevant.
He was the young one.
Yeah.
I have to say, in one of the hype sessions, I feel like Dre was talking about how this was, and I guess I misunderstood, but it was along the lines of like showcasing young hip hop. And I thought they meant they were going to have a bunch of like up and coming hip hop people like join them on the show, like surprise, right? And I completely misunderstood that because I was like, no, I don't really know who Kendrick Lamar is. So that tells you how old I am. Like, it's just like, I don't know that guy.
Kendrick Lamar was like the only one where I was like, I have no idea who this is.
Right. Because
he is the modern version of those folks. Totally. His rap is a lot more conscious than Dre and Snoop. He's got an album called To Pimp a Butterfly that is phenomenal, and I would highly recommend checking it out. He's also got another one called Damn that's really good. That the song that he performed was from Damn. It's called All Right. But I love, there's like a jazz element that flows through To Pimp a Butterfly, and his storytelling and his flow are unbelievable. And most people, I would say, rate him as the best rapper ever, who are familiar with his work, just based on his flow, his storytelling ability, and his kind of social consciousness.
I've certainly heard. I've certainly heard the name, but I just wasn't very familiar. And after seeing the show and hearing statements like what you just said, Alana, have made me be like, I should really go listen to this because I think I'd enjoy it.
Yeah, I do. I genuinely recommend it.
Yeah. I am Mary J. Blige breaking it down like a queen. Man.
Thick, 50 Cent. Just look thick.
Dropping from the ceiling.
No. getting himself down.
Yep.
He looked like he got
Eminem
attacked by
taking a knee was
pack of
pretty
angry
awesome.
hornets.
Yeah,
He was like,
his head was small.
it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eminem taking a knee, and despite the fact that we found out later the NFL was like, don't, and he was like, no, I am.
No, I'm Eminem. I'm just gonna do this thing.
Yeah,
and I think the message behind
Eminem,
that,
no.
right?
Yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing, part of that to me, is that people still got pissed off for him taking the knee, right? Like they were like, "How dare you do that?" And it's like, oh, so he's not doing it during the national anthem, and you still have a problem with it.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
that's
So
a
then
triggery
the
thing.
anthem wasn't the issue there, was it?
Right.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Narrative around that whole thing sort of throws me different directions every time I hear it. But what is fascinating to me is how differently it is spoken about and reported. You know, I've seen things that, well, they knew he was going to do it. It's like, no, what I heard was they said, don't do it. You know, and so you hear these varying
Right.
like takes on what was known and what was okay. And it's just like, oh my goodness, why do we have to dissect it all from every, you know, can it just be a moment? So complicated.
Mhm.
It is. Well, yeah. And you got a lot of billionaire owners' money. Speaking of billionaires, the NFL is going to be investigating a couple of those billionaire owners in Steven Scott and
Stephen Ross.
Dan Snyder. And, you know, as we're hearing in the news, I don't know if this will actually happen. It will take courage from the other billionaire owners in the league and the NFL itself. But one of the consequences, if these investigations turn up some damning evidence, is that one or both of these owners could lose their team, be forced to sell their team.
Sorry, I actually have kind of missed this story. I've been way more into Olympics. Is this fallout from the whole pay to lose scandal, or is this a different scandal?
Yeah,
It's
the
so
Miami
the-
Dolphins one is the Dan
Yeah.
Snyder one is just the fuck shit he's been doing for the
It's
last.
hostile workplace with Daniel Snyder.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it seems like the more immediate one is Stephen Ross's situation with the pay to lose and the evidence that's starting to mount. And
Yeah.
I, for one, feel like this is the more likely billionaire owner who might get the boot, because
and let me be
the
clear,
integrity of the
only
game
way-
because it starts to get really threatened, and you know, there's just a
the
whole
only way
bunch
for
of-
him to be forced to sell is by a vote from the other owners.
Yeah, which it sounds like they're preparing to do.
Yeah.
Because if the other owners, if there's somebody who's doing like pay to lose stuff, that's getting into their own, you know, stuff. And that's the kind of thing that would make them boot somebody.
There are two things that I find frustrating about it, though. Like, he is also being currently taken to task about his hiring practices around people of color, which is a conversation that needs to happen. And it's frustrating to me a little bit that the conversation has become more about his tampering with the way the game is played. Like the racism isn't enough, but the making, like, paying someone to lose, like, that's a violation of our terms. And then the other thing that's frustrating is, like, he's going to be punished by being forced to sell. Where do the profits go? Oh, you write to him. Like, they doesn't have a whole lot of teeth when he's going to walk away with $4 billion from the
if it was more like he would recoup his investment and then everything else went to charity.
Right.
That's a little bit more of a punishment.
Right.
So on the note of the issue of hiring or not hiring minorities, is it people within the front office portion of the organization, or is it the head coaching? Because his last two coaches are both African American.
Well, the complaint that came from Brian Flores was one that was rooted in a pervasive racism that came from the top. It was not exclusively about the pay to lose scenario. I'm not familiar enough with the it seems that it is a being set up to fail scenario that Brian Flores is calling into attention, where it's this hiring practice where we hire well-qualified Black men and ask them to do the impossible, or well-qualified Black candidates and ask them to do the impossible, and then blame them when they can't. And that is what has happened with Brian Flores, and that's a well-known trend in hiring that a lot of people are talking about in equity circles. And so I think that that's the complaint. So it's not merely around the hiring, and that's why the pay to lose scheme comes into play, because he knew that if he took the money, he would lose, he would get the draft pick, and then he'd likely be fired because he lost and wouldn't get to execute his vision.
Yes,
which is what happened.
He would be the scapegoat. He would be booted. They would bring
Cleveland.
in some other.
You're absolutely
coach
right, Curtis.
And now that the owner of the Cleveland Browns is potentially, because of Hugh Jackson stepping forward and saying like, yeah, I had the same situation happen to me when I was the head coach of the Browns. So now there's like, this is going to be a very fascinating can of worms.
I really want that can of worms open and exposed.
Yes.
I mean, change is always a good thing,
and revealing the toxic underbelly of white corrupt institutions is also always.
I just can't believe that he wanted to lose. The dude in Cleveland wanted to lose for Baker Mayfield and not Josh Allen. Like, how beyond stupid is that?
Baker Mayfield played against
Baker completely, but like Baker Mayfield, his ceiling might be an average game managing quarterback at best.
And firing Brian Flores, who made maybe slightly above average team, winning team for over half a season, is pretty incredible.
Brian Flores is a good fucking coach.
He's a good coach.
It makes me nervous about this potential of Sean McVay stepping away from the Rams. That the Rams are going to hire Brian Flores. He's a great fucking coach, and they're just going to keep the machine going down.
No, you're killing me. Or Arizona, do they get rid of their coach and bring him in?
Who the hell knows? The only time that Arizona ever wins is by like dumb fucking luck and accident. Like it's just I mean they were really good. They were a competitive, fun team when Bruce Arians was down there, and they had Carson Palmer, and it was a good, tough team. They gave Seattle fits, but I'm not buying any of that circus down there now. I'm just abused at it all.
I think it's going to be a really exciting offseason for a multitude of reasons, and I, for one, am going to be following this news closely. Well, the NFL season is over, and we go into the dark period. It was a fun season. We got the Winter Olympics though, and I don't know, when do they end, Alana?
I think it's
ceremony?
Is it Sunday?
I believe it's Sunday.
Yeah,
it's this Sunday.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a few more days left of it. Millie, you've been watching pretty closely, right?
Oh, my DVR will tell you stories. Yes.
I have not. I haven't had much time in my life to watch much of the Winter Olympics. So I'm really relying on the rest of you to give me the rundown. So give me the skinny, Millie. What's the good stuff going on in the Winter Olympics this year? Well,
the good stuff is great, right? Nathan Chen wins his gold, and it's amazing. The U.S. I'm going to talk mostly from the U.S. perspective because it is the Olympics and I live in the United States of America and I'm a citizen here. And so I'm all USA this time of year. So USA was not doing all that well in the medal count. We didn't have any golds. It was just like, what's happening? And then boom, like they just started piling up. It has been an amazing few days. And I have to say, for me, like Alana, the snowboard cross, which we had talked about last time, is just super fun, but also to watch Jacob Ellis, who is the GOAT in her sport, finally get her gold. And I gotta say, in that what is it called? It's not that.
And this
I
is
want to
her-
call it mixed doubles, right? But
Is this her last Olympics? Is she calling it quits after this?
She has not said whether she is or
She
not.
hasn't said. Okay.
But what was even better was, so Baumgartner, he does his run and it's so sad, and he was crying, and he's just this sweetheart of a man, right? And he's the oldest Olympian for the US. And they asked him, is this it for you? Like, are you going to retire at the end of his race? And he's crying. He goes, I can't go out like this, and then he
2 days later.
2 days later, he didn't even know. They're like, oh, so we're going to put you with Lindsay in the combined relay. And he's like, what are you talking about? I didn't think I could. I'm in it, and I get to be with Lindsay. Like, he just completely loses his mind, because on top of it, we did have 2 others, and the other gentleman, I think his name is Jake, actually finished higher than Baumgartner, but it made more sense to make this other pairing, especially like, weight and all these other factors that go into it. So the fact that those 2 end up getting the goal, it was just, I told y'all, if you find a way to go watch it, go back and watch. Like the quarterfinals on. It is exciting. It is fast paced, and it's just incredible to watch. So that is definitely the top happy story of the Olympics so far. Right.
Can I add one little thing in there?
Yeah.
13 of the 19 medals that the Americans have won have been by members of the women's team, and there needs to be pay equity, but it's rad that so many women are doing great in the Olympics. Go ahead, Mary.
That's rad.
Absolutely. Yeah. And her name just flew out of my head. The speed skater, the Black woman who won.
Erin Jackson.
Thank you. Erin Jackson's story as well is amazing, because she fell in the qualifiers, and she wasn't going to get to go. And one of her teammates and very good friends gave up their spot, because they knew that she was the better skater and that this was her time. And she went and did something that no other woman has done for the United States. So there's a lot of fantastic, wonderful, beautiful stories like that.
Then I love stuff like that.
Right. And then there's the fucking ice skating, which I think we're going to talk about a little more. So I'm not going to open up the can of worms, but then there's the fucking ice skating.
Did bad things happen there?
So the details of this is there is a 15-year-old Russian skater.
Oh, yes.
Natalia, I can't remember what her last name is.
No, Camilla.
Sorry, yeah.
Valeneva.
Camilla Valeneva. She had in a meet that was right around Christmas, she was drug tested, and then it came back that she was tested positive for a heart medication that is well known, that has been a banned substance for a long time, that is well known to allow people to train at higher altitudes for longer periods of time and experience less muscle decay, less energy degradation.
A clear PED.
A clear PED. Because she is a minor, the IOC has allowed her to stay in the competition. And there was a lot more to it than that, because the Russian Olympic Committee and the IOC were going back and forth, and it was like developing over a period of time. So her scores were allowed to stand in the team event. She is allowed to compete in the singles event. It is
with an asterisk that it's all dependent on an investigation that is still ongoing.
Right, and because of that ongoing investigation, I'm going to let Millie fill this part in.
Well, there's a couple of small points, because and they are important to how people are looking at this. But before I say anything more, I do want to say I absolutely believe that she should not be allowed to compete.
Agreed.
She should be, that Russia needs to be stripped of those medals.
Yes.
And I think it is a goddamn travesty, because they're not going to do a medal ceremony.
Right.
And those teams deserve it. It is one of your best memories. So I'm pissed as all hell, and I don't think she should be able to compete. What I will say within the story itself is the results of those drug tests did not come back until after the games were started. And this is a drug test from back in December. She did test again.
That in itself is like incompetence.
Here's the thing, like with, and again, you know how I feel things should go. But when you get the result of a drug test 2 months later, and you've already had another one, which came back clean, just put yourself in someone else's shoes, you would have a really hard time with being told you couldn't compete, because you would be challenging that to all ends of the earth. Now, counterpoint, now they're saying she accidentally like took her grandpa's medicine. And so I'm like, oh, well, now I really don't believe you.
Right.
But
that Russian gaslighting.
She is a minor. And I don't know how much control she gets to have over anything that goes in her body considering the program that she's in.
Right. Yeah. I do want to say that it is very possible this was something her trainers gave her that she had no intention of doing.
But one of the other things that's really strange with all of this is that they go to this outside body to make these determinations. This, like, you know, this other group, there's a lot of acronyms here. So this other group, which is who basically makes the final decision on this. And that's who's made this decision about, well, you can compete, but you can't win a medal or whatever. We can't make any decisions until these appeals are done. But the like 6 other organizations, I think they really expected them to say, yeah, you're out. And they didn't. And so now you've got every other organization, including the IOC, saying, oh, well, we don't think that's actually what you should do. So it's almost like you take something to an arbitrator, right, in court, where you say, okay, we'll agree to arbitration. And then the arbitrator comes back with the ruling nobody wanted. And so everyone's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
This is horrible. This is worst case scenario, because it ruins the Olympics for everybody.
Well, and now you have a consistency issue, right? You have a continuity issue, because Carrie Richardson 2 years ago in the Summer Olympics wasn't allowed to compete because she had THC in her system, which isn't a known PED,
which is legal in Oregon, and she admitted to using it because her mom died.
Yes. Yeah. She was not allowed to compete.
Right.
So now you've got like this, you know, woman who took a clear PED who is allowed to compete versus a woman who took a banned substance, which is not a PED and was not allowed to compete. And now you're looking at the two differences between these two people. And what's the difference?
One's a minor.
One is
black. A lot more differences. I am going to say this. Do I think race enters into this? Yes, I do. But I also think that there are a number of other factors that go all the way back to the fact it took 4 weeks to get this fucking test,
which is bullshit.
Already started the games.
Yeah.
There are some real differences here.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think she should get her medals. I'm not fighting for Russia.
It's all systemic and it's a mess, and there needs to be you know, a clear investigation into the whole thing and some revisions in the process.
I will say I do think it is easier for people, white people especially, to discount people of color more quickly when it comes to matters such as these.
When we're talking about the public sphere, if we're talking about Twitter, absolutely. Yes.
And we're talking about governing boards too. Like,
well, yes. Yeah. I mean, yes.
Is pot in, like, I know that the NFL has loosened up its rules and regulations when it comes to PED, marijuana, THC. But I think that the international sports community has still classified it, at least it did back then, as a performance enhancing drug. And
they classify it as a banned substance. They don't classify it as a performance enhancing drug.
Oh, okay.
So that's, I mean, she got caught with a banned substance in her system.
Yeah, they're both banned substances. One gives you clear advantages in your, you know, athletic performance, and another doesn't. Yeah.
It makes shitty pizza taste better.
It makes all pizza taste better, Curtis.
Yeah, it allows me to clean the house when I don't want to.
It gets me real fucking paranoid. It's like, oh, is that my heart speeding up? What?
It makes sticks sound good.
Or Rush. Yeah.
All right. Hey, now there's Rush fans out there that I'm sure are listening.
Well, I'm excited about that. That's gonna be a fun rest of the. So what's the biggest stories on the horizon then? What's coming up? What events haven't been decided? Who's going for what gold?
The women's curling team is undefeated. I think the men's curling.
I wanted to ask about curling. I love curling actually. How now the US is always horrible in curling, so they're out.
Canada's really good at it.
The US team won gold last Olympics. John Schuster, the men's team, and the women's team looked to be at the top. The curling world has been rocked over the course of the last 4 years because the Americans won, and we are seeing a lot of really.
If that's true. Tomorrow, I am Seattle has a curling.
Yeah, league. It's like a mile from my house.
I'm signing up because the thing about curling, this is what I love about curling. You can be like a middle-aged 48-year-old dad bod, and you can get into the Olympics on a curling team.
But you do actually still need a lot of arm strength.
Yeah,
moving those brooms. Come on. Yeah. And there's actually some great mic'd up moments from the men's team because they are such a hoot. Those guys where the one like put your hand on my back, because he's going so fast, like he needs some support. And he's like, all right, he's like, I love you, man. Like they're just adorable. Those men are hilarious. The women are super intense. They look good. They could be a surprise. The biggest thing, I think one of the biggest things left is actually Wednesday night at, I think it's at 8:00 p.m. is the once again rematch of the U.S. women's hockey against the Canadians.
Yes.
Here we go.
That's fun.
That's always a good time. And there is one more, there's
a cat on that team who is one of the developmental prospects for the Kraken.
There's an event that I don't recall being there in the past. It's another one of these combined team events, which they're doing a lot more of in downhill skiing.
Mm-hmm.
But there is one more opportunity for Michaela Schifrin, who's had a real tough time here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really great that she's continuing to compete and take her mental health. I wish they would stop asking her questions. You don't usually question the person in 14th place about why they think they did how they did, but they'll sure as hell ask her and put it up there for everyone to see. So she's really held herself together well. But I'm interested to see that because I don't recall them doing that before.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be neat. And then of course we'll have the pairs. We still have the pairs figure skating after the women's figure skating.
Yeah.
Oh, and bobsled.
Yes.
Bobsled, super fun.
I do love bobsledding. Yeah. Who's competing in the bobsled for the gold? Yeah. Who knows?
The Germans and the Austrians, because that's who's always competing for the sliding events.
Right.
Oh, and the US took gold and silver in the brand new monobob event, the women. That's also a neat story.
All right. Good stuff. All right. Let's move on to some dorking. Are you ready to dork out?
I think we got one more topic we want to do.
The rest of you been dorking out?
Yeah, we still have one more topic.
Alana's got a topic.
That's right. I am so sorry. No, that's totally true. Alana, yes. You have a topic near and dear to your heart. I give the floor to you. I am so sorry.
That's okay. There's been a lot of conversation in the Twitter sphere specifically about trans athletes competing in their gender category as opposed to their assigned gender at birth category. There is a specific case right now going on at the University of Pennsylvania featuring Leah Thomas, who because of the canceled season in 2021 due to COVID, she took that time to train and go through hormone replacement therapy so that she could qualify under the rules of the U.S. Swimming Federation and be able to compete. She has met every qualification that has been asked of her. And in the process of switching from the men's team to the women's team, she has moved up in the rankings from 468th nationwide in men's to one of the top swimmers on the women's team.
Right.
She loses races. She lost a race to a trans man, which is not a narrative that most often is talked about.
Sure.
I am presenting this information because I am of the opinion, and it is an opinion that's backed by science, that when you have followed the regulations that have been put forth by the sport, you should be allowed to compete as the gender that you are.
Mm-hmm.
And
those regulations being like hormone therapy and things like that.
So effectively what the regulations are is they do test for testosterone level, which is a horribly invasive process. Some federations check genitalia, and they require the big change that's happened in this is before Leah Thomas, they required 24 months of hormone replacement therapy.
Okay.
And now they have increased that to 36 months, which Leah Thomas is coming up on her 34th month. So it is an intentional designation to keep her from competing at nationals. But the IOC or the ruling federation in this case, because there are like 3 different federations that are kind of going back and forth with one another, has said that she will be able to compete, which is nice. My overall viewpoint here is that this is an attempt to remove trans exceptionality, to remove young trans people, or to take away from young trans people the ability to have an idol within their chosen sport. And the reason that I think that is happening is because we have this push from the right that is designed to exclude trans people from public space. And when you have a representative of trans experience in a high level of competition, of something like Jeopardy, where we recently saw Amy Schneider win 40 games or get to 40 games. In film and TV, where you have someone like MJ Rodriguez being the first nominated trans person, first winning trans person, Best Actress at the Emmys. And a vast number of other.
Which, by the way, can we get rid of those gender designations in the acting categories?
That's a tougher conversation, I think, to have. But I hear what you're saying. I don't think that the governing bodies of those things are capable of making a decision that would allow other people to allow the best performances to win.
Right. Absolutely. Yes.
If we got rid of
we'd see Leonardo DiCaprio winning it every year.
There'd be 10 men nominated every year.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, but by removing this representation, we remove something for kids to strive for, something seeing themselves in a space. The joy and beauty and connection and teamwork and every single element of being a part of a team of your peers when you are 8, 9, up to teenage years, when you're not competing at an Olympic level, which Leah Thomas isn't even competing at an Olympic level. She's in college swimming. It's a different sport. To remove that from a young trans person who is going through the start of their journey, who is finding community with people who identify as a girl or a boy or a non-binary person that aligns with them in whatever representation their bodies are otherwise, their sex is. To remove that is child abuse. It is child abuse. And the fact that we have so many states, so many legislatures that are banning trans women. No, trans women, they are not banning trans men. This is Chris Mosier. He is one of the top rated triathletes in the country. He consistently is being under consideration for the Olympic men's national team, and he is a trans man. But we don't hear about him. And when we talk about this, it is only ever about trans women, because there is the perception that trans women are going to destroy women's sport.
Is there a thought, do you think, Alana, is there a thought of because you have this same argument with the restrooms, right? Which is like, oh, well, you're just going to have men saying they're women so they can go into the women's restroom and like get their jollies off and everything. Is there a little bit of that argument, do you think, going on with this, which is like, well, a man finds he can't compete in the men's races, so he's going to say he's a woman, like it's bosom buddies or something like that. And then he can win the gold in all these women's races.
I think that is probably a part of it. Can I ask, and this would, making a guess, just an average guess, and I'm going to use a popular sport. What do you think the average male basketball player makes in a year?
Average basketball player,
yeah.
Basketball players are paid highly. I'm going to guess, 5 million?
Yeah, that's probably about right. I don't have the numbers. What do you think? I know
what Sue Bird makes, and it's less than $1 million.
Yeah. So what's the average? What's the top? I think the top salary for someone in the WNBA is $223,000.
Right. Sue Bird is LeBron James
220
league,
something is the max
barely
value
makes.
that you can
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
So why on earth, if you were a man who was competing at that level,
totally,
would you throw on a wig just so you could play? Like,
yes.
The concept that a man could just I mean, like, if LeBron James threw on a wig and said, I'm a woman, and went to the WNBA, would that be a problem? Yes, absolutely. Right. Because we know that LeBron, like, that's what we're imagining would happen.
Yes.
But what would actually be happening is someone like me, I've been on hormone replacement therapy for 4 years. I play basketball because I love playing basketball. I will never make it to the WNBA, but it would be fun to try out. But it's someone like me and my training shouldn't be discounted, right? Even if, like, I have a masculine body structure or whatever, I have masculine genitalia, whatever the story may be. The other question I have around this is, was there ever a question raised about Michael Phelps competing against normal humans? Because the man,
he is genetically superior for the job that he does.
Exactly. He's got
the long arms and the wingspan and the upper body strength. Everything about him, about his genetics, are designed to swim.
And nobody said, should he be allowed to compete
in football or whatever, but as a swimmer.
Aaron Donald is a prime example of that. Exactly. Aaron Donald has the right amount. He's a bit shorter, but he's got incredibly long arms.
He's got long arms. He's got the strength.
It's incredible watching him play because he is able, through his length with his arms, his low center of gravity, he can ragdoll men that are like 50, 60 pounds heavier with muscle.
Based purely on how he was built genetically.
It's the whole Watt family, right?
Right.
If you're a member of the Watt family, chances are you can tackle.
Yeah, or the Mannings with quarterbacks.
I mean, it's all about leverage. You can, I mean,
and so if it's not actually a question about genetics, which we're proving that it is not a question about genetics, what is it a question about? It's a question about fear of the identity, fear of replication of the identity by me representing the trans identity in sport. Other people going, oh, I'm trans, and that being a problem, and connected to that, fear of trans exceptionalism, because the minute that we have trans people seen as a regular part of life, a regular part of society, then other people will feel comfortable being trans, which is fucking beautiful, but it's not what these people want.
And this is the thing I want to say to all those people out there who are afraid of that. Like, seeing a trans athlete is going to make my child trans. No, your child is trans if they're trans. Right. This is the same argument we had about homosexuals 30 years ago. And it's like, seeing other homosexuals on screen or in life or wherever doesn't make your kid homosexual. It just makes them braver about coming out as homosexual. That's all it is. Trans people have existed. They've just been in the closet for a lot of years. And the reason they've been in the closet for a lot of years is because those brave ones that came out as trans, you know, in the years where it wasn't maybe as acceptable as it's becoming. They saw how those people were treated.
Millie, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, as someone who so often likes to think that we've made all this progress, if you are listening to this and for a moment think like, it's not that bad, it's overblown. I got to tell you, this week, I saw a Facebook post about Amy and her Jeopardy wins and how much money, and it was nothing but thousands and thousands of posts from people talking about her gender. What?
In the comment section.
It just doesn't, and it just doesn't even make sense as to why they're bringing it up or what it has anything to do with. So if you start to think like this just isn't that big a deal anymore, this isn't really happening, it's not, no, it is. Like you can't win a game show, let alone a swimming meet. Like,
and I think it's what's
brain power matters too, apparently, for your gender. Like it just doesn't make any sense. It only makes sense as part of fear and some sort of strange inbred sense that you've been trained with, that somehow there is something evil or wrong here. And that's just absolutely asinine. And it is so hard to comprehend when you start to think that we have made progress in these areas. You can always go check yourself, because just because you don't see it or experience it doesn't mean that things have changed.
And I think one of the most important thing about Amy Schneider, and I think she acknowledges this and recognizes it, is she's really our first normcore trans person. Like Laverne Cox is one of the more famous trans people on the planet. Caitlyn Jenner is a famous trans woman. Both of these they're glamorous. They are larger than life. They're celebrities. Right. Amy Schneider shows up with a voice that sounds like mine, that she intentionally didn't change so that people like me could see a trans woman talking with their voice that they're not modifying to fit a version of femininity that is thrust upon them. And wearing
even showmanship, coming on looking like you could be the accountant of like the business down the street.
She has done more for trans people than you can possibly imagine. The number of 80-year-old men who are seeing Amy Schneider for the first time, seeing a trans person, having them be a part of their lives and recognizing that they're just a normal person. Like it's that alone will make more of a difference than anything else we're talking about regarded to trans rights, I believe, which is why she's going to get an Image Award from the I forget which one. GLAAD.
So Alana, how did the other athletes competing in these events, what are their thoughts on a trans woman competing in these events?
Unfortunately, 16 of her teammates signed a letter that said they do not want to be competing with her, and they did so anonymously because they're cowards. And I think a lot of that is pressure from their parents, but I think a lot of it too is just lack of understanding of the science in this, and a lack of compassion for their fucking teammate. Like, can you imagine being on a team where 16 people behind your back, without owning up to it, said, I don't think you should be competing. Meanwhile, her fiercest competitor is like, I can't wait to beat her. Like and the thing with Leah Thomas, she is a college swimmer. That is not it's the
not
route.
High stakes.
Right. That's not the route you take. She's at Penn. That's not the route you take to go to the Olympics. That's something you do to get a scholarship to go to the college you want to go to. It's not, I mean, like college swimming it's similar to college gymnastics. You know, you can get some people to get to the Olympics, but in general, it's more of this like team, whatever, club sport type of thing.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be. Leah Thomas has not like granted a single fucking interview since this thing happened, because she wants privacy and she just wants to be able to compete.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. We're living in such a transition right now. No pun intended. Literally no pun intended.
I know. Yeah. Oh, Daniel.
But I don't know. It's a great conversation to have. I tend to lean with you, Alana, which is like, hey, especially, by the way, I just want to bring up, I understand that a committee might want some length of time on hormone therapy, right? I get that. 36 months, though, when you're in college, feels very targeted.
Yeah.
Because when do you start going on hormone therapy? Probably not until you're 18 at the youngest.
No. You can get on hormone blockers as early as like 10, 11. In which case, then you don't go through a puberty for your gender assigned at birth. You would just not go through puberty. And then you might be able to get on hormone replacement. So estrogen in my case.
But right now, how many, people in college have gone on hormone therapy that young?
Probably quite a few. I mean, it's not unrecognized science. There are plenty of people who started their transition process at 4, 5, 6.
Wow.
I know multiple kids now who are in that age range and then started on hormone replacement therapy. Like in the early 2000s, when they were 10, 11, 12, they paused their puberty and then maybe started estrogen. Because if you're thinking about it, this is a 12-year process of a kid.
Right.
Like I knew I was trans when I was 4.
Right.
If I would have come out then, even in the 90s, I probably could have started on
early 2000s
puberty blockers in the 90s without it being 12, 13, 14, without it being a problem. I knew it existed. I knew that it was a possibility for me. I didn't go that route. So I hear what you're saying, where it feels like the acceptance has opened the door for this to happen, and maybe we're not there yet. But ultimately, there are a lot of kids who are starting the transition process.
Good. Well, then they can start getting in there. The 36 months sounds like an incredibly, I feel like if you're in that hormone therapy for 12 months, you're probably got a lot of that testosterone sort of out of your system. But it's also interesting we're not having that conversation in the other way around.
Right.
For trans men going into men's sports.
Usually what happens is they just keep competing in the women's sports because no man wants to compete against them. There's that case of Mac Briggs, I think, in Texas, who was a high school wrestler, who, and notice we're talking about high school athletes and college athletes and not professional athletes. Right. So he beat every woman. He went undefeated 2 years in a row because he was only wrestling the women because none of the men would wrestle him.
Wow. Yeah. But we don't talk about that.
Right.
Yeah.
I've taken a lot of time, so we should move on. But I care very deeply about this topic.
Well, it's a good conversation to have. I've been following it. I haven't had a lot of opinions on it. I just, it's a time for me to kind of like step back and watch what's happening. I think that I personally, I found the reaction to be an overreaction, which is, I think unfortunately common reaction these days. But I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes down. Why don't we dork out about some stuff?
Just real quick, B&E Meats on top of Queen Anne. They had a really great Valentine's Day special. Got 3 different prime cut New York strip steaks and some bacon wrapped prawns, and they were delicious. Had a great Valentine's Day. And then the band Cheek Face, highly recommend, especially if you're into groups like They Might Be Giants, Pavement, Cake, with a little bit of Vampire Weekend sprinkled in. It's real wordy, nonsensy, jangly music that I highly recommend. Cheek Face. Yes.
Can you find it on Spotify?
Yes.
All right, go listen to Cheek Face, and then you can listen to the rest of our other podcasts.
Just don't listen to it on Spotify. But anyway,
follow Cheek.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Are we on
That's true.
Spotify?
We're on Spotify. We have
right?
nothing to do with Joe Rogan.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Go
derail.
find us somewhere else. Did you like us on Spotify? Go find us on some. I would say Apple, but
Right? Then you're like Amazon.
God damn it. We need our own podcast network.
I never even heard of Joe Rogan until this whole like
Lucky
Aaron
you.
Rodgers thing. I never even actually knew this guy existed.
Lucky you.
You're better for that, Curtis.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you darking out on, Millie?
Oh, I'm super excited. If you thought I went through Archive 81 fast, then I discovered Doom Patrol on HBO. Which I will say that I have never read DC Comics. Everything I know about DC comes from animated series or movies, right? So I've never read them. And as a very small child, I loved Justice League like nobody's business.
Yeah.
But I'd never heard of Doom Patrol. I remember when this show came out, I didn't have HBO. So I've heard, I saw a couple promos for it, and I was like, well, that looks interesting because, I do love my comic book shows. Oh my God, do I love this show. It is, not only is it Misfits, so I gotta love that, but these storylines, kind of in tune with our podcast today, are really so much about identity and accepting who you are and allowing yourself to change and grow and at its heart, right? But meantime, it's lots of fighting and weird action and crazy storylines. People go into other dimensions through a donkey's mouth. There is really, really wild, wacky stuff happening. But at its core, the Doom Patrol is a bunch of misfits and who are trying to figure shit out without their leader. And it's just great. And I just finished an episode. There's one of the characters has been, kind of coming to terms with the fact that he lived his life as a closeted homosexual in the 50s. But of course he hasn't aged. You got to see it to understand it. But it's just these storylines, they're beautiful. They're thoughtful, and they're within this really crass, ridiculous world. So it's once again just right up my alley, and I've been tearing through the first season. It's HBO Max. I'm sorry, Curtis. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, Doom Patrol stars 2 Seattle actors playing the same part. Riley Shanahan is the physical robot man. He does he's Robot Man as the human. Brendan Fraser voices him.
Right.
So who's the first actor?
Riley Shanahan. Riley Shanahan, by the way, was supposed to be in Green Stage's King Lear that I played Edgar in. He was supposed to be my Edmund, and then he dropped out last minute.
Oh yeah,
so yeah. Congratulations, Riley Shanahan. Yeah, you got Doom Patrol, I guess, but you could have been in Green Stage Shakespeare in the Park in 2013 with me. Yeah. Great loss of opportunity there, buddy. He's not listening to this podcast.
No, he's not.
Curtis, what are you darking out on?
Brendan Fraser.
I'm just watching in abject terror all the shit going on in the Ukraine.
Yeah. Oh,
not entertainment. It's legitimately terrifying me. It feels like Putin is like doing a Biff from Back to the Future to NATO and Europe's George McFly and Leah Thompson as the Ukraine. Like it's just like it's horrific.
It feels like we're one Archduke Franz Ferdinand assassination away from World War III.
Yeah. I mean, I think humankind has been predicting the end of the world since the dawn of humankind, but it's like this is like legitimate. The world just feels more unstable.
Agreed.
Like this is just another instability of like a really shaky set of fucked up countries with a lot of power. And
Mhm.
yeah, I don't like any of it. I've got relatives in Europe, some of which I'm fairly close with, and it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the United States does. I don't know what NATO does, but it feels like an invasion is imminent. There's the western part of the Ukraine, and under my understanding is trying to become increasingly more democratic. There's a pull to join NATO, and I think that Putin is an unhinged tyrant who absolutely despises with his whole entire being Western democracy. And the idea of a former Soviet state right next to his country pulling further away from, the tyranny of oligarchs and everything is just something that he wants to put his foot down and stamp out in any way possible. And it feels like he's going to potentially do it.
Have been having the same anxiety as you, Curtis, listening to this whole thing. It just feels like something is imminent. I mean, to me, it feels like for the last few years, there's a powder keg that's going to explode. And I don't know what that powder keg is, but there's something that's going to set off a series of unfortunate events. And it's feeling like this is it. Because you get something like this going, and then there's, a rising superpower in China that is going to take advantage of any kind of thing happening like this to sort of advance their own agenda, and then the US that's trying to preserve their foothold on the world, and it all just feels very precarious right now.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to be North Korea, but
you know what? It's like
shift to the Russians.
It's just, and that's just another sort of xenophobic outlook too.
Well,
like
listen,
it's just like,
the
yellow man, crazy yellow man
back again. So why not the Russians?
What's that?
I said everything nostalgic is being resurrected again. So why not the U.S.-Russian?
Hey man, rivalry? It's like all that fear and paranoia that I grew up with in the '80s is just like shot back up,
rearing its ugly head again.
Actually, I listened to a really informative and well-balanced interview with it was on NPR with a gentleman who's much more in. I think he's in Ukraine and very wise to Russian politics and what's happening in Russia. And what he likened it to was actually the Cuban Missile Crisis. He said it's much more akin to that, which was a moment that took us to the brink. And it took diplomacy to de-escalate it all. And he felt that was very much, if you were going to find a real comparison in our history as to sort of what is this face-off right now, that was his comparison to the closest situation.
Yeah, I will say all of this stuff is what has me listening to KEXP music in the morning instead of NPR, because I just don't need to wake up every day to more anxiety.
Yeah.
And I feel
there's a lot of anxiety.
So much anxiety. I know.
And the fact of the matter is I don't drink anymore. So I'm like,
I just finished my second weekend of Copenhagen at Second Story Repertory in Redmond. That's a plug for everybody out there. We're closing this weekend. So if you want to get your tickets, get them now. We close Sunday, the 20th. You can find tickets at secondstoryrep.org. Purchase them. It's a great show.
Plug.
What time is your show on Sunday?
I don't know, really. I just show up when the stage manager tells me to. I think it's a 2:00 matinee, but
there's no football, so what am I going to do?
I know, but the play is about two atomic physicists, the two premier atomic physicists of the time, Werner Heisenberg, who I'm playing, and Niels Bohr. And just so happens that Werner Heisenberg went off to, went back home to Germany to help Hitler develop the atomic bomb, and Niels Bohr from Nazi occupied Denmark escaped and went off to help America build theirs. And the play is about a meeting that the two of them had in 1941. The two of them were very, very close friends and colleagues. They created the Copenhagen interpretation together of atomic physics. They worked closely together until they didn't. And they had a meeting together in 1941, which nobody really knows what happened. But whatever happened during that meeting, it fractured their friendship forever, and the two never spoke again. The play supposes what happened at that meeting, but it's 1941. It's in the middle of a war, and we can only speculate that the two of them had maybe very different philosophies, of what to do with atomic physics. And as I've been doing this show, it's, I've been watching this whole Ukraine mess through that lens, and it's kind of scary. So I know. I feel you, Curtis. By the way, Matt Slinger, I know you're listening to this when you're out there. He came to see the show on Saturday.
Nice.
I just hope it wasn't too dark for him. I hope the lighting was okay.
He said you were great. He told me.
Oh, good. Was he able to see it though?
Can I out him on this show?
No, he already outed himself. He left at intermission because he thought it was over.
Thinking that this play was done.
Yeah, I know. Can I just say that night that he saw it, we went into the dressing room, so we left. We left it, and the lights came down at the end of the first act, and there was an enthusiastic applause. It was really nice, and then it kept going. We were like, they really like us, and then it kept going, and we were like, they think it's over. They're clapping for an encore that we're not going to give them. I know. It was funny. Matt Slinger, I love you. I hope you were able to see us. It's a very moody show, and the lighting reflects that. I'm just saying. I've been dorking out on. I just got a PlayStation 5. I was able to get my hands on PlayStation 5. I know, and so I've been playing all these video games. I've had an Xbox previously, and so there's all these PlayStation exclusives that I was never able to play. I know, so I got Horizon Zero Dawn. And I've been playing the hell out of that game. It's a giant open world game. It takes place in. It feels like I'm not far enough into it to really understand the lore yet, and it feels like that is going to be the mystery of this game. But it feels like it's Earth in a post-apocalypse, and things have gone to maybe some kind of primitive technology. You play a woman who was an outcast of her tribe. And she can shoot a bow, and she has a spear and stuff like that. And it's super fun. And there's a mystery that you're trying to figure out. And there's robot dinosaurs roaming the land that you have to hunt. I mean, that which sold me right away. Like I have to hunt robot dinosaurs that can like shoot lasers and stuff. I'm in. Like great. But the story is absolutely fantastic. The whole like first part of the story at the end of it kind of like had me a little bit clamped, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I just found out that the sequel is about to come out. And that also has me very excited. By the way, I was just reading today, by the way, the sequel, the game I'm playing was built for the PlayStation 4. The sequel is optimized for the PlayStation 5 and all of its graphics. And the protagonist of the Horizon series is a woman. And in the sequel, the graphics are so good, so detailed that in certain shots you can see the hair on her face. And there are Reddit men who are like, what? The Aloy has a beard? And then now a bunch of people calling him out, being like, oh, you've never actually seen a woman up close, have you? Because we've all got a little bit of hair on our face.
Oh, the clown car that is America.
Just outing themselves. Yeah. Anyway, I'm having a good time, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I've also been watching Ozark on Netflix. I'm addicted to crime stories. I love crime stories, and this is another one. Fantastic acting. Jason Bateman and Laura Linney. Jason Bateman plays a mild-mannered accountant who starts laundering money for a drug cartel, and things break bad, and he has to flee Chicago to the Ozarks to hide out. But of course, the complications are met along the way, and bad men and all that good stuff. And Laura Linney kind of plays a woman who's smarter and braver. It's kind of a cliche to call her a Lady Macbeth, but that's kind of what she is. And not as like a woman who's like encouraging him to like keep killing, but as a woman who's like, she's the one who has the power and the brains and the strength behind the man. And it's a good time. It's a good show. Yeah.
Did you know that the girl, Julia Garner, who's also in the new Shondaland show called Inventing Anna? She's the one with the curly hair. She's married to the guy who is Foster the People, who sang all the other kids with the pumped up kids. Just
really?
Just random connection there.
That's amazing. Yeah, I like that. Good. Maybe he should have sang the halftime show. That's all I have to say. Curtis has some really good stuff up right now on 12life.com. You should go check it out.
Love letter to Jordan, Canada.
What's that?
His love letter to Jordan, Canada.
His love letter to Jordan, Canada. Yeah. And who responded. Yeah. My name is Daniel. For Alana, Curtis, Millie, the rest of the 12s, saying goodbye. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.